sorry, Nicholas. I've usurped you as showrunner.
What? Why? Why is that a big? Who is playing?
We didn't need a head copper that applied heat.
This is a clicky-clacky math rock game. If it's not gambling, I don't know what is.
Minefields are the new exciting counter.
You guys are preventing me from creating a Jar Jar Binks of BattleTech.
Welcome to the Odysseus Legion Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the 14th episode of the Odysseus Legion Podcast. I am your introductory rules host, Nicholas, and joining me tonight are Standard Rules, Luke.
Hello.
Advanced Rules, Chris.
Ooh, I got advanced rules. I was thinking I'd be lucky enough to be called the quick start rules from the beginner box.
And Experimental Rules, John.
He's got the IATMs. Get him.
I don't know. I wound up as experimental, but I'll take it.
Garner is unable to join us tonight as he is currently at Adepticon. He wanted me to pass along this message. Karnov down sucks. We have a very special episode planned today. Catalyst Game Labs has released their changes for the new BattleTech Core Rulebook that is coming out this year, and we have opinions. But before we get into that, what have you guys been up to, BattleTech or otherwise?
Still prepping for Richmond Open. Been painting up my Silver Root Keshik guys. They're got some snow texture stuff, I guess I'll call it, and been experimenting with that. It's been pretty cool. I actually surprisingly liked it more than I expected. Happy with the outcomes.
I just got back very recently from a trip to Mississippi for a SCA event, which was a whole lot of fun, but also it involved like 20 odd hours of driving each way. So I have been mostly not doing BattleTech, but I have had time to paint up most of the Kurita Ranger Lance in kind of what spare time I do have. So I have an avatar which is ready for the table, and I have a Chimera ready for whenever Catalyst prints new rule sheets for it that are actually useful.
Yeah, I don't compliment you enough when you post on the Discord, but like some of your recent stuff has been gorgeous.
Yeah. That avatar was awesome.
Yeah, the avatar.
It was an avatar.
Yeah.
I bit my tongue. I bit my tongue on that one.
Yeah. As far as mechs go, I think it was one of my favorites to paint recently, at least, because it's not too big, so you don't really get model fatigue from it, and also it's got a pretty splayed out frame. There's a couple of mechs which have very close in arms that are difficult to like adequately paint, but the avatar was very, very nice and accommodating, and I had a lot of fun putting this together.
I think it shows, because like I didn't look at it too closely, but I remember seeing it as like the details on like the caution stripes and things. I'm just like that's a good one. That's a real good one, Luke. And so
yeah, this is what happens when I'm stressing for midterms and procrastinating and not studying.
My BattleTech has been a little sparse lately. I've been keeping up on force packs, and buying BattleTech always counts as hobby progress, as we know. And I did do some painting in anticipation of our RPG game that is temporarily postponed, that will hopefully get back together here soon. You'll see the theme of what I painted up when I unveil them, because I don't want any spoilers. But otherwise, yeah, just keeping up with everything going on lately, including the new rules.
As for me, just some practice games with Garner and a lot of progress on concepts for Charybdis Moon. I've talked to you a little bit about that, John, and I'm very excited to actually get some stuff to talk about and show more, hopefully pretty soon. I just got to arrange my time and actually get some drafts and concepts and play some playtest stuff here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So, Catalyst Game Labs has been working for a while on new rules. Now, they were talking about this as a new version of Total Warfare, but it has become abundantly clear that this is a new version of the BattleTech manual that is becoming core rules, and that has a lot of interesting implications. We've talked about some of the proposed rules before as they released them in playtest packages, but this is the announcement for the complete new book, which is called the Core Rulebook. It includes rules for mechs. It's largely an expansion of the BattleTech manual and includes some sort of fleshed out rules for battlefield support vehicles, infantry, battle armor, and apparently even some aerospace stuff. And I first want to talk to you guys about the changes that they have made. They have, while the actual rulebook is not out, they did release developers notes document that highlights the changes in the core rules that they have made. We'll talk a bit more overall about our thoughts and feelings as we get into our second segment. It's sort of like a meta conversation, but for now I want to stick to the actual rules. The changes are divided into subsections for, playing the game, movement, combat, damage, the battlefield. They have a loose structure for missions, changes to weapons and equipment, and a battlefield support section. So we're going to start with the playing the game section.
There is, I think, some interesting stuff going on in here. The big one is they have changed front-loaded initiative is now the default instead of the current backloaded initiative. I think this is generally a good change. It's one of the most common rules that I see people play with. There are some potential downsides to front-loaded initiative that have to do with move blocking, but overall, I think forcing a side with more mechs to move most of their stuff up front is generally the better way to go.
Yeah, there's lots of conversations on initiative, and while front-loaded isn't perfect, it's essentially, of the options that are easy to implement, it's the least bad one.
Yes.
So, quick question: is this the front-loaded initiative where if I've got, let's say, like 3 extra mechs over you, is it going to be I move 2 and you move 1, or is it going to be I move all 3 of my extra mechs until we're balanced?
No. So it's the way we normally play now, which is if you have more, you move 2. If you have double, you move 3 as your first move.
Yeah. So that is what is the standardly, we play with what is widely considered and called as front-loaded initiative. There was some version of the playtest that had, and some tournaments have implemented this, what we've referred to as super front-loaded.
Right.
Which is, if you have more, you move everything you have in excess before your opponent. And while the document I'm looking here doesn't specify, I'm assuming and hoping it's not super front-loaded. But overall, my thoughts on the playing the game section is this is pretty much all stuff that is, if not constant, it is easy to change in a format like meta rule setting. There's nothing in here that is diehard to the way the game is played.
Half ammo bin loads, that's a good change.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. They did also talk about they are removing dumping ammo from the core rules, which is a little bit goofy, but I guess this is what we get in consolation. So no more dumping machine guns, but you can take 100 rounds instead of 2.
It may also make sense combined with a later rule, which is you can only take up to 20 damage from an ammo explosion.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like, okay, so you're not like deleting your entire mech from a machine gun. Like that makes it a lot less.
Yeah, I think that was the reasoning. Yeah. Do we know what the initiative die optional rule is?
No. I'm hoping it's something similar to initiative compensation that we use, but that's part of the problem with this document is it's a bullet pointed list
there's
of
a
changes.
lot of stuff we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So there are things that I will reserve judgment until it's clarified, like initiative die optional rule added. what is the addition of die optional rule?
Yeah,
And here's the thing. It says added, not standard, so that might just mean it's a sidebar optional rule in the book. In which case,
Yeah.
I don't care.
it's something new they came up with for the, because I was trying to remember if this was some TAC ops optional thing, but I couldn't place it. So okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so playing the game, nothing here is overly bad. Like I'm not particularly fond of super heavies and tripod mechs being core, but
Well, so that was my more overarching response to this is I'm glad they're finally making the Ill Clan era more prominent, if not the default setting. Because then they turn around and sell source books that are either Ill Clan only and don't mean anything, or they keep putting out force manuals that stop at the Civil War. It's like, pick an era and let's support
Also,
it.
I do just want to inject because I went and I found it in early playtest that you were talking about earlier, Nicholas. Initiative die is initiative compensation.
okay. Yeah. That's
Yeah, so it's you get a bonus equal to the number of turns you have lost initiative, and you use a die to track it that trades between the players.
Okay.
Yeah, because effectively, each person has an equal chance to win initiative, but if you end up on a losing streak of that, it's awful. It can really break a game. And
Well-
as for someone who has lost initiative more often than not in every single game he's played this year, I like having that die. I
Well,
like having compensation.
And that does fit the theme of feels bad. That's the
Oh, we're not touching.
That-
We'll touch on that later.
that needs to be the overall core rule book parentheses feels bad. Like, it's anything that felt bad they tried to address in this. Who that felt bad to and how bad is subjective. But
I have strong thoughts on that.
oh yeah.
Chris, do you have any thoughts on the playing the game part?
No, like we've said, I think the half bins is a nice change. The initiative die, I love playing with that, and the front loaded initiative. That was my main concern, making sure it wasn't super front loaded. But if it's just what we all commonly know as front loaded, I think it's a great change. I think that is, like we've kind of said, the best of all the options. Even though none of them are spectacular, it's the best.
Yeah, throughout this there are several very, 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 very commonly played with optional rules that they've just made standard. Front load is one of them. If we're going into the movement section, we don't play it with it in Iliad, but where is it here? I thought the moving backwards level changes is added as a standard rule. The only reason that's not an Iliad is just I didn't want to add another one that was kind of meh when there's already so many.
I mean, it I won't say it never comes into play, but it's less of a major issue. It's a great optional rule, but it's fine that it's optional.
That's one that's just like I have there's no reason not to add it other than just like, I don't know, it just feels like there'd be too many if there's not a real persuasive reason to add it. But making it standard means, hey, it's in there. Don't have to fight that anymore.
Since we're on the movement phase, I'll say for me, the fact that an immobile unit doesn't count as an activation or an initiative sync, I really like that. Not that it's abused much in Classic, but in Alpha Strike, that can become a thing where it's like, oh, you heated up my mech to shut down. Okay, that's great. I lost initiative. No, I didn't, because I'll just sync the initiative on them. And, it's, I like it. I like not having, it kind of sucks if you've got an immobile unit, but it's kind of nice to not be able to abuse an immobile unit
To a certain extent, if you're playing with front-loaded initiative, having initiative sinks matters less. So including front-loaded and eliminating that, it kind of like, I don't feel like it changes much. The movement changes, water is less lethal. Overall, just feels like a standardization. There's nothing in here that's really objectionable, or like, I think it's a net positive.
Yeah, I think overall, the movement section, these are all unambiguously good changes. One thing, okay, so this got thrown down into battlefield and urban combat, but I think we should talk about it in movement. Skidding has been removed.
I knew as soon as you started to say that, I was please go for skids.
He's going for skidding.
This we should talk about it here, because I think this goes into the same thing, and I think this is fine. Skidding has, in my opinion, been one of those. It's one of those, like, Jesus Christ, I did something stupid, and now I need to like read 5 pages of rules to figure out how I die horribly.
Everyone's driving on racing slicks, apparently has no traction.
I think we can talk about whether or not it's realistic, but at the end of the day, I think this is a good thing that it's been pulled out of the core, because it's goofy, and it takes up a lot of bandwidth. And while it does lead to a lot of very, very silly moments when you're playing on city maps where you have stuff, there's a thing I'm thinking of a Megabec screenshot I saw where Princess fails a skid with a locust, hits a fuel tank, blows up 3 of her mechs, and then for those who are not aware, Princess is the Megamech AI. And then this breaks Princess, and it stops responding, and it stops making inputs. Because it's lost 3 things during the movement phase.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Skidding going away is just like, cool, this was... skidding is, I think, the perfect optional rule. If you want your city game to be weird, then whatever version of tactical operations we get will give you this back.
And I think it's because, again, much to Nicholas's chagrin, BSPs are the default vehicles, which don't skid anyway. So yeah. I think they're just leveling the playing field with that, and it's nice. We just had this happen in my RPG. I had to stop for 20 minutes to figure out how something skids. And it was great. It was a great story beat, but it took you right out of the game. So
yeah, it's great when you resolve it. It's not great for the half an hour before that happens.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it comes up so rarely, also part of the reason people might avoid pavement in general is that they don't want to deal with skidding, and so
and they avoid water
and some building rules.
Yeah, I love the changes to water. Like, water might as well have been lava before these changes. No one ever wanted to walk through it because they were so afraid of failing that piloting roll. So it's going to make a lot more maps not just usable but enjoyable to people, and they're not going to dread the couple pieces of road or the little pond they can't go all the way around, things like that. So
the One Rivers map will no longer be like, an impenetrable wall that you have to jump over.
Yeah.
I think part of the problem with water was just that people weren't familiar enough to understand the consequences of their actions. Because even with current rules, I go into water constantly in specifically Megamech, because I know what to do to not cause instant death while Princess doesn't. But that doesn't mean I disagree with these.
That sounds like you're torturing the AI. That doesn't sound like water is actually being tactically useful.
It's so tactically useful. I mean, it's free partial cover. Yeah. And if you have heat sinks in your feet, which you should, you get extra heat sinking.
Dog, the rest of us are Inner Sphere players. We don't get doubles in our feet.
Yeah.
No, you did not. I just said heat sinks. I play both Intro Tech on Megamech and Ilclan in Megamech.
Okay.
No, but I think to all of your points, I mean, like making water and roads more accessible at the start, and not to be this thing like, oh god, I'm moving on a road, now I've got to look up 4 pages of rules, or oh, I'm afraid I'm going to fall in the water and drown. Removing that fear barrier, it does make the game more enjoyable. It lets you in. I think that's what at least all the movement rules, definitely, and many others, it makes the game enjoyable.
I'd also phrase it as a fear/knowledge barrier,
Yeah.
right? Because if you could be rightly afraid of something, or if you know the rules of the game where you're not surprised by the consequences. Because I feel like part of skidding, part of water is, oh, go in the water, and then you trip and fall and realize that if you have armor gone from a location and it hits the water, you will get an automatic breach and your unit's dead. Right? If you know that, like, hey, my unit's got full armor, I'll go into water and it's fine, or you gotta go like, oh, should I go into water? No, I have an exposed torso. Right? That different understanding of the rule where you're not caught by surprise means, like it is a different experience for the knowledgeable player versus the less knowledgeable player. And I feel like making these changes and a lot of the other changes and have a similar feel to a certain extent, and I'm not always opposed to them. It varies a little bit by rule, but we'll get into that. So it seems like movement section,
Fine.
nothing.
Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Big
Thumbs
thumbs
up.
up. Yeah.
All right, here we'll get to a little bit more contentious here. The combat section.
Oh, there's so many things they changed here, and like half of these are like, I don't like weapon phase changed to ranged attack phase. Okay, cool. Club attacks make a PSR. Cool. That makes clubs actually maybe do something. There's some of these where I look at them and I'm like, I really need more explanation of what they're up to here. Like,
Number 6, line of sight always ignores partial hexes.
Yes.
What
does
is
that
a partial
mean?
hex?
What does that mean? Yeah.
Is that the hex? A fundamental part of the game was putting your opponent on the line and having the defender choose, so you can take advantage of cover or not. It was a strategic decision, and you're taking that away where it no longer counts.
Well,
what?
I have a feeling that's not partial. I have a feeling partial is going to be like, if you have like a line that's managing to pass through like 3 different hexes at once.
Yeah,
one of those
crosses the
hexes
corner of a hex. Yeah.
Oh, okay. If there's a specification of like, you can ignore that little case where you have to get out the laser and try to judge. It's like, does this hit the little itty bitty corner of these woods or not?
Like, I need them to tell me what's going on there, because if it's just like, it touches like the vertice or something of like an otherwise unrelated hex, like, okay, that makes sense. But also like there's just not enough detail here. We can't really glean a whole lot from that.
So surface level, if it's a complete change to the on the line hex declaration rule, I have problems with it. If it's you can ignore if it hits like if
both you and your opponent are scratching your head about whether or not this hex is part of the equation, it doesn't.
It's
not. Exactly. Like, if you have to get out the laser and stabilize the table and the laser to get out like protractor and ruler to figure out if that woods is along the line of sight, you ignore the woods, don't worry about it. I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
that's good.
I was going to say, this leads into number 7. Water no longer blocks.
Water no longer blocks line of sight, but attacks are forbidden to be declared across the water
meaning
line.
I can see that submarine, but I can't shoot it. Is that what that means?
I think practically what this is going to function as is you can put a unit underwater which can spot for things on the surface and vice versa.
Yeah. I'm also curious about the full explanation of this, because they're in a later section. We keep just jumping to later sections. they mention how there is a PSR for sensor checks, and I'm curious if they're going to be talking more about mech sensors, which I feel like they would mention a bit more in here, but I guess it's not a rules.
That's going to be more along missions and things like that.
Yeah,
there you go.
That seems reasonable.
So on partial cover, I think number 15, where it's a height advantage no longer negates partial cover.
I forgot.
That one feels like they're changing the whole concept of level changes. Like, I think we've had this discussion where it's more like right now it's supposed to represent a slope and not a ridge. And now it feels very ridgy, so
I will from a narrative standpoint, I can see where you're coming from, but as someone who has had to deal too many times with the immense power of the high ridgeline that someone's just set up on, there is so much strength in being able to take the high ground, and I think at least giving some sort of band-aid to that is probably fine. I will have to see this. I tested out a couple of games at home with this at one point, and it felt reasonable. This is also one of those things where you have to, as someone who has taught a lot of new players the game, you kind of oftentimes will find yourself in a weird situation where the new player's like, oh, you have partial cover, or oh, I have partial cover, and you have to explain, no, partial cover doesn't exist here for one of us because the other mech is so much higher, and it slows the game down. And I think I'll wait to pass judgment to play more with it, but from onset, I think this is a fine change.
It's this one I definitely have some significant concerns with. Just like Chris, I know that BattleTech, the hexes are larger than they appear, and it's part of why I don't always like 3D terrain, because it just makes everything into cliff faces, and they're not supposed to be cliff faces. Essentially, mechs are to scale closer to the size of the elemental miniatures than they are to themselves. And if you think of the game as representing that scale, partial cover does make sense. Every time I've taught a new player, when I'm just like, hey, we're sitting right now and there's a table between us, you can't see my legs, but if I move back from the table and you stand up, you can see my legs. So it's not hard to teach and illustrate players, and it's not hard to understand the rule of I'm higher, you don't get partial cover. I don't think it's a complex rule that is hard to grasp when explained properly. And as an organizer, as a competitive player, I do have concerns about suddenly making that +1 ignore my legs such a powerful, a constant thing where it's really going to make faster, light, smaller mechs stronger.
It will emphasize the mobility as a way to defeat that, but that's all right.
One of the worst things when you have faster mechs is if you get hit with a light mech, if you get hit with a Gauss rifle in the leg, that pretty much always breaches armor.
Mm-hmm.
And you risk losing legs a lot. Legs are incredibly vulnerable on lighter mechs. My Howler constantly will lose a leg, but if I can put it behind partial cover, that's a significant chance that the damage disappears, and one of the worst places to get hit on a mobile unit that's trying to accomplish objectives now is shielded. Mm-hmm. I think in balance terms, this is probably going to be very problematic.
Yeah, because I guess that is the other side of it, is it will depend on. I think this is going to be problematic for people who really like playing your 10,000 points versus my 10,000 points, last one standing is the winner type games. I think for a lot of games which force players to move on objectives, this is going to be a lot less objectionable.
I would almost think the inverse.
The thing with objective games is the whole point of it is you are not making decisions for optimal survival. You are making decisions based on you need to move towards points. Whereas, so you can win the game that way. Whereas in just like a deathmatch game, your entire kind of decision process is basically boiling down to, I need to be in the most threatening and protected position possible all of the time.
Right. But when you're playing for objectives, you have specific units that you bring to handle objectives where a lot of times you don't care if they get hit anywhere except the legs. You can choose, oftentimes you can choose terrain that will now take for greater advantage of partial cover, and partial cover will be fantastic right up until you have to make a move where your path is definitive.
Until you actually have to like make a capture. But also, like, let's be real here, on most of the time you can find a way to, if you are bringing kind of low weapon, high speed light mechs as objective grabbers, most of the time those are not you are going to be moving those to keep them out of your opponent's ability to hit them in the first place until they need to hit an objective. Like your Howler that can jump 7, how often are you currently giving your opponent a shot better than an 11 on that before it is touching the thing it needs to score?
Yeah, no, but that just means, here's the thing, right? I will jump from woods to woods to make them shots on 11s, but now I can just jump from woods to partial cover wherever the heck I want to find it, right? Like my options for moving that Howler have just expanded 100-fold now.
I think that's over. Okay,
maybe not 100-fold, right? But like it is can be a dramatic amount depending on the map.
It'll make fast mechs. It'll give fast mechs more options, but also I think, as we've seen, the kind of criteria for an effective light mech are so tight at the moment that I don't think that's necessarily an issue.
Yeah. Ultimately we're gonna have to play. We're just gonna have to play this one out. You know, like this is definitely a thing that statistically, and in particular the way we play in a competitive environment, I think ultimately, like reading some of the preamble, the way, and we could talk about this more later, but I do feel like a lot of the decisions in here are based off of people who play in a more ongoing campaign RPG narrative context rather than people who play with a higher concern for balance.
Yeah,
it's surprising this didn't make the larger playtest. That seems like something they would have liked to have seen experienced on the table. Yeah,
I agree.
Some of these kind of popped up like that were like, oh, they went that direction with that. That was not in the playtest. So
yep,
it's interesting.
Yeah. So as far as other ones, because we have a bunch of other sections, I want to give a few words on a couple of these, and I figure each of us can do that. Clearing woods. I am sad about this getting removed, but it's also a relatively small part of the game, and I know a lot of people, when I bring it up, have no idea it's even part of the base rules. That's whatever.
Most people forget, and in my little notes here, I put no more clearing woods, parentheses, Luke sad, question mark?
Yeah. Garner and I are going to be disappointed about that one. There's terminology changes, they're kind of whatever. The club changes are good.
Yeah.
Clubs are cool but very bad right now, and this makes the club a little bit less awful. The ability for your archer or whatever to forgo using its medium lasers to just like yank a piece of rebar out and hit the wasp that jumped at it is pretty nice.
That's totally where my head was at. I'm looking at this, I'm like, I want to start like digging around for rebar and smacking people with it. It makes it cool again, I guess.
People have asked me with my Howler, like, oh, you pick up a club and hit people with it? No, I punch them in the face because I want 2 potential head hits, but I might consider a club now.
Yeah.
I think the other big one in here is the general melee attack rules. Kicks going to a -1 target number modifier, punches also going to a -1, and leg weapon fire only disables a kick by the leg that's kicking. That one is, I think, okay, this is Wasp stocks and Crusader stocks are up. Thumbs up, but it's not particularly positive or negative. It just kind of is.
Yeah.
The other two are, I'm going to use the word interesting with a lot of connotations there, and I know other people have more in-depth thoughts about that.
I've got a potential rant on this, so I'll let you guys.
So from my perspective, I am in favor of going to -1 for both kicks and punches, or I would have been fine with eliminating the kick altogether and leaving both kicks and punches at 0. It's just to me, it's can my pilot do the thing that it's not trained to do but capable of doing? I would have left it at that, but if they're at least now they're both the same, I feel that's better, because I felt kicks were that's all you're ever going to do, because it was just, I get a -2 if I kick you, and I'm probably going to take out your leg and cause a PSR, or I could try to punch you, and yeah, there's a chance I could punch you in the head, and that would be awesome. But it's not enough. It was never enough. It was like, I could do double damage and a kick and likely wreck your leg. That was always more powerful as an action. Now it feels, I'll try and punch you if I have fists and I think I can get your head. I'll do that over the kick. I'm more willing to chance the punch now.
I was kind of surprised they didn't remove the PSR for missing a kick, since they removed a lot of PSRs, or at least made it a PSR with a negative or something like that. I was kind of surprised.
I think it's still such a powerful option that forcing you to have to make that calculus is still worth it.
Yeah. Apparently it's not a feels bad moment to have to make a PSR if you miss with a kick.
Well, I tried to be cheeky and disable your mech, and now I'm paying for my sins.
Yeah. I did a nice pirouette when I missed and fell. Yeah.
I think originally, right, you get a -2 to kicking, but if you miss, you get a PSR. With how difficult PSRs could be, was a reasonable trade. It allowed you to potentially deal with faster units. You had a sort of like an accuracy choice. And if you're playing it in the 4-5 base and you never leave it, you're pretty much only ever going to kick, because, punches, that -2, that differential between punching and kicking was huge. But the moment you left a 4-5, the moment you moved away from 5 piloting to 4-3-2, punches suddenly become so much better depending on the mech and the differential, because all of a sudden, you're not depending on the -2 in order to hit. And the penalty when you have a higher piloting for kicking and missing, like, you're more likely to succeed, so it's kind of like, whatever. But the advantage of obviously depending on the level your target is at, because like a kick on the rear punch table is still amazing, but so is a punch on tables depending on the mech, and you get 2 of them.
Yeah, and it's even better now.
2 chances to hit. 2 chances to hit, and possibly hitting the head or just the upper body on a lot of occasions. Once you get rid of the difference between a 0 and -2, it's huge. With a -1 to punch, the moment I have a 4 piloting, unless I'm a level above the person, particularly because getting up is easier, PSRs are easier. So the whole point of, you kick them and now they have to make a PSR is a lot less advantageous. So most of the time, it's like, I'm going to want to punch. I see very little reason to kick when they're both at -1. And particularly the moment a mech takes 1 pilot hit, I know this because I use my punch monkey and I punch all the time, right? You get 1 lucky pilot hit, whatever. It's not that big of a deal. But the moment you take a 2nd or a 3rd hit, it suddenly becomes a lot more likely that the mech falls unconscious and bad things start to happen.
Yeah.
Right. And so the moment somebody gets a head hit, all of a sudden, my punches are -1. Like, if I don't have that many arm guns, like, I'm going for punching now because they're at -1. You're not losing that much in terms of sacrificing your kick into PSRs now to punch, right?
Yeah.
Punching is better than kicking now. But they're trying to make punching more useful, so kicking isn't automatically the best option. Well, again, if you leave the 4-5 space, punching is great. And now if you're in the 4-5 space, there's really, unless you're kicking, they're both at -1. You get 2 chances at -1. If it's a high TMM, you're better off punching. You know, if they're a low TMM, you're probably better off punching. It's a bigger thing. A head hit is more important than knocking him down because getting up is easier.
Well,
punching is now better than kicking, in my opinion.
and like we said, all these changes made okay pilots good and good pilots great. So we'll have to see how that plays out when people actually start bumping their piloting skill.
I mean, I know it's a later item, but then you start adding in things like a retractable blade and punching or claws. You know, I mean, there's a lot of, like, I agree with you. I think punching is going to be the new kicking, you know, in terms of melee. I also think clubs are, I'm excited for clubs. I'm still going back to that. I think that clubs will also be more
the club is going to be fun.
Yeah.
And one that I completely skipped over, and actually someone else can go this. Charges and DFAs are getting some significant changes.
Charges are broken.
Yeah.
As someone who basically, like, if it wasn't for outside events in my life, I would have gone 5-0 with my Black Lantern J. And Chris, you brought that thing to a tournament. There's a reason we no longer allow piloting 2, and that is things like that. Where the differential bonus on charging makes it so that if someone brings a 4-5 and you've got a skilled pilot, you could automatically hit, and you can automatically hit for stupid amounts of damage. And I don't know, I mean, I'm assuming when they say it's based on a TMM rather than hexes. So like for example, with the Black Lantern J, if it was a 10 hex charge, TMM 4, 5.5 times 4, you know,
it's
like
much more reasonable than, you know, times 17.
22 damage.
I think there is a decent chance the way they work it is they will change the modifier on the charge.
The charge damage formula rewritten to be based on TMM rather than hexes moved, and to include the hex the target is in, reducing damage from high speed 10 plus hex charges. Like,
that's fine.
I'm okay with this.
Good change.
It makes, you know, again, the Black Lantern J, you know, if it hit 18 hexes, so, you know, on a straight line charge hitting the person, that is, you know, TMM 5.5 tons. You're looking at, I'm not going to do the math, but I'm just going to say close to 30 damage, which is about the same as if you hit with all of its guns.
Yeah, it's like 37. And I could also see them bumping it, so instead of being a 10th of tonnage, it's like a 7th of tonnage or something. Like they might mess with the modifier to bring the damage up, because I think what they will try and do, because up to 10 hexes, TMM scales fairly linearly with hexes moved. They will try and fit the previous damage to they will try and fit the previous damage calculations to the TMM, and then after that, it's basically because TMM starts to decrease linearly from that point, not linearly, it kind of decreases logarithmically. It will basically just be nerfing the things above 10 hexes.
And I am fine with that. It was kind of stupid and kind of broken where you could find things that, again, like the Black Lantern J or certain fire moths or certain things where they're just like,
the fireball.
Hi, I'm a missile.
The fireball, the whatchamacallit, the celerity. Both notorious for their ability to just deliver a 40 hex charge and delete a mech from existence.
Yeah. And in addition, it seems like they're making charges and DFAs less punishing to do.
Yep.
And I think I'm okay with that. I'd want to feel it and see what's written and explained more exactly. But DFAs are always kind of like, right now, wild chaos cards that rarely pay off, and having them be a little less punishing because they pretty much never work. To see them work a little bit more, I'm okay with it.
It doesn't seem so much like they're making them work any better so much as they're rationalizing some kind of clunky stuff. Like charge attack, like the main ones are charge attacks. You can, if you're interrupted from your charge attack, which I'm taking to mean your attack, the thing you're trying to attack, becomes no longer eligible to be charged, you can try and throw a punch somewhere else. Or what's the other one? Failed charge is no longer displaced. That's probably for the best. But it's stuff like that, or the DFA stuff is mostly just kind of dealing with some kind of clunky wording of the DFAs. I don't necessarily think it'll make them easier to do, but it will make them a little bit less weird.
My phrasing wasn't necessarily make them easier, but I don't remember the exact thing.
It's
but
more
it's like less punishing.
Yeah.
Because, for example, on other actions, the PSR modifier for making a successful DFA attack is reduced from +4 to +2. When you fail a DFA, it counts as a fall from 2 levels, so you essentially take 3 falls worth of damage, and by reducing it from +4 to +2, you're less likely to experience that, and so it's less punishing to fail the DFA. You're right. It's much the risk reward calculation is significantly different, and so sure the effects of a successful DFA haven't really changed, but the fact that a DFA is less likely to be catastrophic for the person trying it means it's definitely better overall.
All right, we have
damage.
Pro. All of the ammunition rules are back from the survivability playtest. These are all very good.
100%.
Yep. I wish they had included the 1 damage to mech warrior instead of 2 as part of the playtest.
It's included.
It's there.
It's in there.
Ammunition, internal explosions deal only 1 mech warrior hit instead of 2.
But I mean, it wasn't in the original playtest rules. They slipped this in later. And I like it, but I think there would have been more opinions on not only reducing damage, but also making it less lethal. I think there might have been some discussions, but overall, I like it.
All right, so here's, I guess, is there anything in here? Because I think this is another section where most of the things in here are pretty unambiguously cool. Does anyone...
50%.
All right,
I'd say like 50% of stuff. I think the ammunition stuff, hull breaches, it's fine. I do think that as a whole, I can't exactly argue individually with changes to say leg actuator crit changes, or it's just as a whole when they add like, okay, the penalties for these hits is worse, and you can only get 1 PSR from each leg total, no matter what the damage is. Combined with everything else, mechs are going to stay standing a lot longer. It's going to drastically change the way the game functions in terms of, obviously, it's reducing a lot of feels bad moments. It's reduced the significance that increased piloting makes on the game. And I feel a key balancing aspect to take advantage of was piloting differentials, or hey, that guy brought like increased gunnery but didn't improve the piloting, so you can take advantage of that and force them to fall. Or if you go for the legs with, say, a kick at a -2, you can force the PSR, get them to fall, maybe able to hit things. Or masks were a much more significant risk because you could create yourself in the legs for a lot of these things. And the fact that as a whole, they have changed so many of these, and mask, and all of this, means that the game's going to play, I think, a lot faster. People are going to make what would have been riskier moves a lot more often. Mechs are not going to fall as often. And it's going to be very much a gunnery, shoot 'em, kill 'em, more action rather than tactical game. And it's an interesting thing that I'm judging from this and what I've read and we'll talk about a bit later, feels like they might not have really thought or played out as much as I would have liked them to. Like, it's individually, I can't necessarily argue against any one of them, but as a whole, it feels like a big change.
Okay, so I am going to say, yes, it is a big change. However, I'm going to bring back what I said when the initial damage playtest, because a lot of this was in the damage playtest already. I think one of the interesting changes here is they have completely removed the importance of the hip, where hip now just counts as another leg actuator, which I think is probably for the best because it was really clunky previously. I think overall, these are going to be big, significant changes. However, most of the time when you saw these changes prior, the problem that arose from them was you end up with a mech that gets its leg shredded, and then you're like, cool, this is going to stay on the ground for the rest of the game. It was, I think, the difference here is, yes, I do think this is going to make people push to play with units less conservatively, and I think that's a good thing, because the pain of a PSR with a shredded leg or a gyro hit previously was oftentimes, you weren't allowed to take the sheet off of the table yet, but you already kind of internalized that your mech was dead. And I think making that less of an issue is for the better.
And the fact that you only get a single PSR.
Yes.
Over the life of the leg, whatever happened during that turn is a big one.
Yeah.
I mean, that alone, I think, would have done a lot of the lifting on these issues. You know, because like it was kind of silly where if you got, 2 or 3, you got kicked and you lost a foot and a lower leg actuator, you lost both of them. That's 3 PSRs all of a sudden.
Yeah, now it's only 2.
Now it's only 2.
Which,
fine. I feel like that alone would have done a lot of the heavy lifting for the feels bad moments and kept some of the other more interesting gameplay thing. It's just, again, I can't argue against any one of these individually, but as a whole, I feel like it's going too far.
I think reducing your MP by only 1 for losing a hip doesn't feel punishing enough. I think half was okay, but
yeah,
I think
know.
That's fine.
Going back, like I think some of the previous rules for critical hits were too punishing. I think, and the real problem was cumulative damage and the way that really made a mech fall apart. But this feels like the punishments for each individual one isn't enough, and they reduced some of the penalties for cumulative stuff, where it's like, I feel like they could have done less and gotten a more nuanced
I guess the hip one really just sticks with me because it flies in the face of 40 years of fiction, where you hit something in the hip and it's limping along. Now your locust instead of 812 is 711. You're like, oh, okay, that's that doesn't feel good.
But they did also remove hip crutching, so now the theoretical PSR modifier, I believe, is actually higher if you have a totally wrecked leg.
I don't remember
because
the rules
it's cumulative
for that.
as opposed, it does accumulate instead of just taking the hip damage.
Yeah,
There's something
you can
about
get up to +3 instead of
when the leg
+2.
is completely destroyed,
Right.
but
I think I think if you look at it from what was their intent, and their intent, I feel generally was to make it more actiony, more, and I don't mean this in a diminutive way, but more like an arcade game, or like the computer games where it's really hard to fall or to really kind of you're always in the fight because of what you said.
Well,
if you lose a hip, if you lose a gyro, you might as well just count the mech out.
That's straight.
They didn't like that.
How MechWarrior 5 is now. You completely destroy a leg, it doesn't fall over. It limps around pretty slowly, but it doesn't fall. So
right.
I do ultimately, in terms of a balance sense, my instinct is that this benefits lighter mechs more than it does heavy mechs. right? Because like a turret tech mech, you take crits, you manage to stand up, you stay still, you're still in terms of combat effectiveness and still in terms of achieving your role, you're closer to achieving your role than you are as a lighter mech, right? Like that Locust that loses speed, can't run, gyro hit, like those are the mechs that if you lose a gyro on a Locust or a hip on a Locust, okay, yeah, now what role does it serve? It can't
Yeah, a 4/6
accomplish
Locust
its mission.
isn't useful.
I think that's we'll see. I do think that's not necessarily true, because oftentimes I find slow mechs in bad situations need to very carefully micromanage the few pips of movement they get. So if you are in a bad position with the heavy that doesn't have that much movement, you can get really, really boned really quick, and those are way more expensive than that Locust is.
Yeah, it's a weird dichotomy here. Like, there's going to be some very different results in clan versus IS tech elements in some of this, but also I think you're definitely right that a cavalry line, a heavy that does need to be able to move to accomplish a goal is closer to the Locust in that it has to move to accomplish its goal. But an Annihilator on a hill probably doesn't care all that much. Like this makes the All
right, do we have anything else to say about damage?
I think I'm good.
Does anyone actually care about the little heat section?
No.
It was all good.
They've removed standing, adding heat. That's fine. The other things here are basically just consequences of too much heat. Those are fine.
Yeah. Other actions. There's sensor checks.
They exist.
PSRs are easier. Leg damage, only 1 PSR. We mentioned that. And some clarifications on domino effects and falls. A lot of this is kind of, facing after fall table is deleted.
I'm good with that.
Yeah,
it's one less roll.
That's exactly, and one less roll, it's fine. But no, it's no.
It's still a roll.
Same number of rolls because you still have to roll a 1d6.
Right. It's the front. Yeah.
Damage on the rear is a 1 instead of a 4. Yep. So you're not eliminating any roll. You're just eliminating randomness. And honestly, in terms of seeing, thinking about it now, in terms of I have randomness in a competitive setting, if you're trying to create a balanced game, is almost never good, right? Having a random die determine your facing and having the consequences be negative or positive as a result, where your opponent can potentially take advantage of that, I don't think is good. And so while it doesn't eliminate a die, and I'm not necessarily fond of some of the stuff they're implementing in terms of a roll when, all of these mechanics are now roll 1d6, this one I'm okay with. This one I like.
But yeah, this is fine. Seatbelt checks got rationalized a little bit. Seatbelt checks no longer add damage to mech terrain modifiers, etc. to the PSR. I'm going to need to see how they're wording this, because that reads to me as I'm not sure. I assume that just means leg and gyro actuators aren't going to impact it effectively. And also the seatbelt check isn't easier in water, but I'm not sure what else that's doing. So I'm gonna need to know more.
Are they including the +1 for 20 points of damage? Is that what you're thinking? If that is gone now.
Well, that's what it would imply. That's what number 10 would imply. Yeah.
And that just means your mech is less likely to take head hits.
Yeah.
So I can feel they're getting rid of another feels bad moment where you take a head hit and fall unconscious.
Yep.
And it means it's less punishing to have people fall over, because it used to be you kick, they fall, they get a seatbelt check, and they might take a head hit, which also means kicking is less good because now you can punch to get the head hit.
But but
then with number 12 there, where consciousness checks only use the highest number to avoid. So if you do 2 head hits or 2 punches and get 2 head hits, I only make 1 consciousness check.
Yeah, but still on a higher number.
Yeah.
No,
I think that change was to make the ammo explosions better too, now that they don't do 2 points.
Yeah.
That
But
was
now-
a little odd.
2 punches and then I fall.
Yep.
So I don't know
Have
how
to
you
make the
do it,
one.
but 2 punches and then I fall and I fail my seatbelt, so I take another one. Normally that could be a lot of rolls and a lot of chances for you to fail. Now it's 1 roll, 1 chance to fail.
Mhm.
It eliminates the cascade effect of you take a head hit, you're more likely to fall, or like these other effects. But also, I don't know, it feels like it's going too far. Cause like John, you were saying, oh, they did it because of the 2 hits to the pilot for ammo, but they got rid of the 2. It's now just 1.
Right.
Yeah.
They could have
So now
done
it's
one or
like-
the other. Yeah,
Yeah, there it feels like another thing of, oh, we have these separate ideas. We have a problem of oh, nobody likes it when their mech warrior goes unconscious. How do we deal with this? And they all pitch in ideas, and it's just a blanket yes, and it feels like it's going too far in the other direction.
I'm going to give an alternate explanation for this because I think this is a fine change. This is taking the framework of the existing PSR rules and applying it to consciousness checks.
yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, it's
Always just take the
it's-
higher, no matter what.
Yeah, it is. It is. We are going, because one of the issues with consciousness checks is there was some squirrely timing with them. That kind of require, and this is just no. If anything triggers a consciousness check at the end of the phase, your mech warrior just you roll 2d6 against the highest pilot hit number that you've reached. That's how we're doing it, and I think that's fine. I think that's as a change. I think that is a fine way to do it.
I stress two things here. One, it's one of those. I can't argue with it as an individual change, but as it's adding up with everything else, it's the cumulative problem. But also, you compared it to PSRs, which it's very different from PSRs.
Yeah, I know.
All of your PSRs are on the highest number, and you make multiple. This one is you don't make multiple.
Yeah.
So, I think you realized that as you were saying it, didn't you?
I did, but also I still think this is a better way to do it. Of just like, okay, you've crossed the threshold for a piloting check. You need to make one at the end of the phase. Like,
I think it's better under the old rules. Under the new rules, I think altogether it's just, hey, consciousness checks are easier. Also, you're a lot less likely to take head hits in many different ways.
Yeah.
So it suddenly you're kind of pushing it off further away from the relevance it has to gameplay is not just lessened, but severely lessened all of a sudden.
yeah.
Yeah, it's ammo explosions are much more survivable, but you'll still have to make a consciousness roll. But by the way, you only take 1 point now, and you're like, oh, well, have all these been tested together as one?
Right.
Yeah.
I also, again, I think that the ammo explosion rules, I think, are another one where I look at those and I go, yeah, this is probably... They are... I think a lot of people are misunderstanding exactly how powerful 20 or 10 points of internals are.
Without case,
oh, yeah,
absolutely.
no.
Oh yeah, 20 points, you're gone.
Yeah, like Luke, you pointed out that it's like 20 damage. Only like the heaviest assault mechs can possibly survive that on their internal structure. And like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Like it's one of those like it feels very different, but then you actually look at record sheets and it's like, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, well, it's basically heavies and assaults with a standard engine can survive a uncased ammo explosion, but when it happens, they are losing a side torso, they're taking a consciousness roll, and they're also getting crits to their center torso. Like, it's bad. It's really bad.
It's still
And
not
the
a good
same-
thing. It's
and-
just not an
yeah.
instant delete of the mech.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the 10 points on a cased ammo explosion is also really bad in a lot of cases. It's going to
Yes.
make tax maybe a little bit less feel bad, but most of the time, I think for Intersphere XL mechs, it is going to still kill the mech.
And this goes back to the concept of randomness in a competitive setting where you don't want victory or loss to be determined completely on random. And like randomly hitting that ammo and the mech is just completely gone is not, hey, here's a fresh mech and I rolled a 12, then a 2, then a 12 or whatever whatever it is, and you get the ammo.
I think that's why they changed the mech warrior hits too, as well, since every clan mech has case. You could live through 3 ammo explosions with case, whereas this would have scrambled the pilot and you're dead. So now that they made case so much better or survivable, they had to make sure the pilot could live through it too.
And granted, you were already seeing that because improved heavy lasers and the small bore Gauss rifles did ammo explosions small enough, and they tended to get packed together that you could end up firecracker chaining mechs, which was always really funny when it happened.
There was a brief point in time where I really liked the anti-personnel Gauss rifle, and some of those mechs, yeah, man, it's got 8 of them, 369, 3 damage, efficient BV cost, decent ammo efficiency. There was a Shadowcat that for its BV with a bunch of them is like, look at this thing, it's heat efficient, Gotham, it's great. And then somebody crit one out and reminded me, it's like, yeah, it explodes as 3 damage, but 2 head hits. Oh crap. Yep, nope. I'm not bringing an AP Gauss machine anymore because it's a melt the pilot machine. I might consider them again now.
The Inner Sphere Magshot Gauss rifle might actually see some play. We'll see. I think the only thing we haven't covered here is dumping ammunition. I think the dumping ammunition rules were already very, very limiting, and I think with the changes to how ammunition is handled, they are going to be a lot less relevant. I think this is whatever.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yeah, if you only take 20 damage from your machine gun ammo and you can bring half of it anyway, that was the main culprit.
Yes.
And so just like, hey, you're no longer taking 400 damage, you're taking 20. That's a lot less abysmal. So
yeah, I'm
all right. The battlefield and urban combat.
I need to see how these implementations work. I can't give you any commentary on any of this.
This is definitely more interaction, more thing. The main thing I'll say is smoke has been added to core rules.
Oh boy.
And I need to see how it says fire and smoke added to core in a form modified from previous implementations. Okay, show me what this is, because that causes problems, particularly, and I'm going to skip ahead here, they have added smoke munitions.
It's only artillery smoke and presumably setting fires. Not
Inferno 4, Smoke 4, Thunder 4.
Yes. It is not we are not adding SRM and LRM smoke munitions as far as this document is shown.
First of all, I don't think they should have smoke rules as standard. I mean, I will see how they implement it, because current smoke rules, it's widely joked that they are a mega mech only rule because no one wants to use them and measure them in the wind in regular games. And so if it's just the artillery and it's more of a people think and choose rather than having to play with it in a standard game, I'm okay. Yeah, whatever.
The BMM smoke rules were pretty decent, the simplified ones.
The issue with the BMM smoke was it didn't go away.
Yeah, and unless this goes away, but then how do you track it? Unless every turn you have to roll something. We'll have to see.
I think that's a case of there's already so many dice on the battlefield. You can either it has a lifetime of 1 turn, or you just put a dice counter next to it and it just goes away after 2 or 3 turns.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It's going to put smoke for this round or something, but we'll see. I do like that weather is in there now. That's nice. Although most of it is just gives you a +1 to hit or something like that.
Yeah. So the weather rules in BattleTech are some of the worst rules and worst optional rules of all of the optional rules in the game. They just make the game worse in an attempt to be more interesting, but it's like, hey, everything is a penalty. It's just flat added. There's little interaction or usability in the standard weather rules.
You don't like the 2% roll for the tornado killing everyone?
Oh, and Mega Mech, that's the worst. No, any kind of situation where suddenly you're dealing with weather, in Mega Mech or not, it is awful. I'm curious what they're adding or doing here. I'm very excited because there's some alternate campaign weather rules I'm working on for Charybdis Moon that I want to reveal at some point, but not today.
But yeah, I think just putting these rules more visibly in front of players, this is kind of whatever. I think some of this stuff, for people who like BattleTech as an RPG, this will be cool. I think for people who like BattleTech more as a war game, which I know a couple of us are really into, these will be things which can either be excised because they're not on the maps you're playing with, or there's something that you can just say, all right, we're playing with standard weather conditions. I don't want to roll low visibility.
And this is officially where skidding has been removed.
Right.
Yes.
The next section is missions. I think this is my thought on the missions rules are kind of similar to the scenarios in the back of Total Warfare. It's a starting point for people who don't know what else to do. But once you figure out what else to do, you move on from these because I don't think they're the best written or made. Having
played a couple of them, they're way better than the ones in Total Warfare right now, and I think that's just that. That's what I can ask for. Is it the best scenario pack in the world? No, there's some goofy things in there, but also at the same time, I think for just having a bunch of relatively easy to understand missions that you can quickly run through, I think they could have done so much worse. I'm pleased with what it is. From the playtest.
A little something in core, and then I'm sure they're going to have a book later of missions.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Yeah, because from my understanding, they're with the chaos campaign, with the campaign systems they've been doing. They've been putting in more work of figuring out how to write missions. So
I'll say this. I mean, putting it into the core book, putting in some good basic missions is a very good thing, so that a new player can pick up the core manual, be able to flip to a mission, set up some mechs, and start play. I think that's a great thing, just for the hobby. Is it for the experienced player? Is it for after you've played it 3 times? It's probably not worth it. But it's a good thing for the new player, and I think
it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Me as the middle school boy who got this book and played a few times with his, second removed uncle or whatever, and now I'm just excited, teach people during recess in 4th grade or whatever, having the missions at the back of the book, great.
All right. So with that, we're on to weapons and equipment. There are 50 entries from here. Sorry, Nicholas, I've usurped you as showrunner. Here's what we are going to do. Each of us is going to choose one of these, or if there's 2 that are connected together, and we're just going to go around and we're each going to talk about one, and we can open it up for discussion, and then we can do a second round.
Okay, so I'm going to jump in because I really only have one that I care about, which I am generally pleased about. It's C3/ECM. As a C3 user, play a fair amount of Draconis Combine, so C3 is my jam. I like that ECM no longer totally negates C3. I am a little worried that I now understand better why they were manipulating the multipliers for, when you're building your C3 network. I'm cautiously optimistic that the net result will be the correct one. But I do have some concerns that they may have overcosted C3 while, giving it some bonuses against ECM that I would have rather have left it as is. But go ahead.
Let me butt in on you real quick. Are you talking about?
Yeah, in the book here, it just says its BV costing system has been revised.
Okay,
Right.
so you went with you're talking about the initial playtest. It was all C3 networks are plus 30% BB
Yes.
per unit. In the scenarios pack, they changed it again.
Oh, what did they change it to? I missed that.
It's 20% for a 2-unit network, 25% for a 3-unit network, 30% for 4 or more units, and then boosted C3 adds an additional 5%.
It's still more expensive for
Yeah.
smaller deployments.
Yeah.
I think
That's the
fine.
thing. We've seen people use 2, 3, or 4 linked units in a C3 and Classic to great effect.
Yep.
I've brought a small C3 as part of my Wrestle Hog Force 1 Iliad season, and it functions great in small detachments and efficient. The problem I saw that people were complaining was the cost when you started bringing a full company of C3. And I'm just like, what? Why? Why is that a big... Who is playing the kind of games where bringing a company of C3 in Classic is a concern? I feel like that's not a reason to change the mechanics of the game, because someone's like, my week long in my basement permanent setup game is not as... I can't bring the company fairly. Like, I don't understand the reason. I get the ECM thing, that's fine. I think they're changing it to line of sight. They're doing some whatever things for that. Cool. Don't care. The fact that the cost increased so much for small deployments, I think is a bit ridiculous.
That I agree with. I think it is. That's a bit much. I mean, 20% is a bit much.
I think it's still costly. We'll see how it. I think in general the fact that it is far less easily hard countered by ECM, because not only does ECM simply degrade it, but ECM only works if you actually manage to catch one of the nodes themselves within the network, instead of being able to isolate them by cutting off line of sight. So having played with it, I think it is going to be tricky to use, just because it is a significant cost still. But I think for the extra resilience they've added to it, I will wait to see how this functions, because I think this is going to lead to, I think the added resilience is something they needed to factor into the cost, because C3 can do some really nutty stuff when you do it right.
Yeah, it's no longer hard countered by ECM, but also it's a lot easier to apply the ECM effect.
Yeah.
Yes.
But also the C3 unit has to have line of sight, but also for a 4-unit deployment, like the cost is something like 10% higher.
Yeah.
When it was already relatively expensive.
I'll wait
to make bigger C3 deployments more viable, they hurt smaller deployments, and I don't know.
And considering most people want to play, somewhere we'll say between 5 and 10,000 BD on average to play in a reasonable amount of time, I think it did go a little bit too. The percentages do go a bit much, because having a 2 or even we'll say a full lance, just one lance, that's expensive, percentage wise.
And the thing is, I get that in many ways it was annoying to calculate, the 5% per each unit added together, but we are getting, as BattleTech is getting more popular, we're getting tools that are making it much easier. Before Mech Bay, I'm proud that my spreadsheet did it correctly. You didn't have to load up Mega Mech, but now you have Mech Bay that does it for you. And these other apps and features, they could have just, updated the master unit list to do C3, and suddenly, people aren't trying to do it by hand or the calculator. Apps and implementation for some of these problematic things can make it so they're not really problems anymore.
But I think the resilience changes to C3 and the reduction in the kind of line of sight powers of ECM are good. We will see if the costs are correct. They do seem a bit steep.
Yeah.
All right, Nicholas, do you have a...
Yeah. I have one overarching thoughts and two specific thoughts.
All right, we're picking a change to a weapon, and we're gonna do a
mask.
Okay.
We already
As
talked about
somebody
mask as-
has somebody who uses mask all the time, it was kind of silly how bad masks were compared to superchargers.
Yes.
I think if we weren't playing with a reroll mechanic, masks might be more punishing, but this feels like a little too far into making masks less not feels bad, because I know like the way we play and a lot of other systems are played, this just means I'm gonna be masking all the time.
There's no
You know,
reason
if it's
not to anymore.
If it's a crit chance rather than just you basically lose a leg. Also, the crits are not as bad anymore. Oh, I got a crit to my thing. It actually doesn't affect my movement whatsoever in some cases. Or, oh, I lost a hip. Now I have lost one movement point on my Black Lantern. All right, 7-11 to 6-9. Yeah, that sucks. But hey, guess what? I'm going to mask again the next turn.
Yeah, I think so. For reference, the new mask rule is it functions the same way superchargers do, where instead a failure, instead of causing automatic crits to each leg, causes a critical hit check for one leg. So you can still roll a 12 and blow the entire leg off, but aside from that, it is I think much less punishing. I am going to push back on you, Nicholas, for one simple reason, which is the way mask is costed right now is it assumes you can use it every turn. So I think the idea of making it easier for you to use the mech at its full capability is not a bad thing.
The thing, yes, it's costed that way, but it doesn't. Because the thing is, when you wanted it, you could use it. You know, you can. I don't feel like in terms of BV and opportunity costs, that is a significant change. You know, I feel like it's appropriate to pay the BV cost for being able to move that far when you can move that far. It's not, you know, it's not assuming every turn, it's assuming when you need to you can, and that's totally true for mask. I do feel mask was BV appropriate previously, and now it's just better. I get that. I honestly, combined with, again, I think the part of the problem is the combination of factors here. The fact that they've made mask to a potential crit, and they've made those crits less bad. I think mask is better than supercharger now.
I think the main thing, I don't know if it's better than supercharger. I think the main difference between the two of them is mask does not destroy itself on a failure. It just destroyed your legs to the point where it would be foolish to use it previously. I think if the new rule is it functions identically to the supercharger, but the thing it applies the crits to is different, I think that's fine. Where if you fail a mask roll, you don't get mask for the rest of the game. I think that would be fine.
Yeah. You know what? If that was included, I think I would be okay with this. But that doesn't say it's included.
That said, it does create this really funny situation now where if you fail a mask roll, you are encouraged to try and keep your speed up by masking again the next turn, increasing the chance of a second mask failure, which does lead to some really silly scenarios where you're like kind of trying to figure out if you could make that 7-up and manage to escape from a situation with an already broken leg, which I find very fun.
Yeah, I would very often, 1-turn mask and occasionally 2-turn mask. Right, rolling a 5, you're more likely not to get it on a risky move. It's worth it. I could see myself going up to 5 a lot now, and possibly even going up to 7 in rare circumstances, because again, it's a chance for a crit, not a guaranteed crit.
Oh, you can feel the gambling in it. All right, so yeah.
I mean, this is the clicky clacky math rock game.
Yeah.
If it's not gambling, I don't know what is.
Yes. All right. John, do you have a change you want to talk about in here?
No. I'm pretty happy with most of them. I do like the changes to autocannons. I like
the autocannon
boosts. they got that was pretty nice across the board, ignoring the first crit and unjamming and all that fun stuff.
No
So hopefully,
jamming UX.
yep.
Mhm.
Hopefully more autocannons.
So the not jamming UX thing is problematic. They didn't have to remove jamming. They could have just made them unjammable.
Mhm.
You know, like if it's one of those things. Is okay. I get it. You want to remove the feels bad moment, but there's already a solution there.
Yeah, and you already made jamming easier to do.
It's another instance of I feel like they just went a little bit too far in combination with everything else. And
Yeah.
I do feel it. This comes out not too far after I think it's a conversation episode that didn't get released where we talked about just how good autocannon 10s are.
Yeah.
And immediately at the beginning of this document, it said that autocannons suck. Like,
Yeah.
hands down, full stop, period.
I think especially if they're with some of the battlefield support changes they're doing, I think that the 2 and the 5 needed help, and the only way that you can help them is by categorically raising all ships in the class.
I'm not saying they didn't need help. I'm saying, like, I don't think the autocannons suck full stop is
Yeah.
a good statement when I don't think they do. I'll put it this way. If I'm customizing mechs, I do think they kind of suck. If I'm building custom mechs, I'm probably not going to choose an autocannon 2 or autocannon 5. If I'm playing the game with stock mechs, oh my gosh, autocannon 10s are efficient and great.
Yeah. That said, oh dear God help you if you try and put more than one of them on a mech. They do not work well if you try and both them.
Oh, there's a mech Garner was looking at and thinking about because he's nonstop trying to figure out what the heck he's actually going to do in some of these tournaments. But there's a mech he pointed out that's like, hey, here's 4 autocannon 10s, I think 2 ultras, 2 LBs for like 2,200 BV on a decent mover.
What the
I don't remember what mech it was. Okay, that thing's really good.
Is that his Jaeger mech?
No, but Jaeger mech is really good.
Yeah.
He likes the Jaeger mech, but no, this is something different.
Yeah, it's got 2 Ultra AC 10s and 2 light AC 5s and 2 medium ER mediums. But
What has both of these in combination? Oh, I know what it is. It's the Gladiator. It's the Gladiator BA.
Yep, Gladiator. Yep. That's it.
Yeah. This thing is goofy. I've
looking
used
at-
it before.
Oh, and it's got jump too.
Yeah.
I was looking at that thing like that's a solid mech.
Yeah.
which Gladiator is this?
It's the Gladiator -BA.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is that like the Marauder 2C2 or something? There it is. I found it. Okay.
It's
Wow.
they needed to
Oof.
fill a cannon hole, so they made a weird version of the Gladiator, which is better. Well, not better. It's a more conventional assault mech.
Yeah.
I am out of these. I'm gonna choose because I think I agree with you, John. I think for the most part the autocannon changes. I'm big hot on most of this. I think the one I'm a little concerned about is I think the armor piercing ammunition may still be too powerful if people are rocking up with some of the mechs which are loading a bunch of like light AC2s and just trying to pepper people down. I think that's going to get really annoying really quickly. But I will reserve judgment to see what that is. And that's also, if that's the sort of thing where they need to push an emergency errata, CGL has been very good about that sort of thing on their PDFs, so I'm less worried about that being a super impactful thing.
I know. I already know the special munitions thing is going to be something that we're going to have to
Talk about,
correct format on our format level. Absolutely, someone's going to do something quirky, and I'm going to have to fill in holes. 100%. I know that's going to be a thing.
I said everyone do one. I'm gonna do two because they're kind of connected. They have given some of the like awful little missile systems that everyone forgets about some new fun things to play with. They've let Thunderbolt missiles
No.
use special munitions, which is hilarious. And they got rid of the arming time within the minimum range, which is kind of goofy. They aren't giving them Infernos, which I think is for the best, but I think
Right. I need to specify they've changed Thunderbolts. They've also added Thunder.
yes. Yeah, I'm talking. Well, they've also added Thunder, which is that I think if we want to talk about new counters, new exciting counters to Light Mechs, Nicholas, minefields are the new exciting counter. But the other one is they have removed the +1 penalty from medium range missiles, and they've stuck them with a cluster hit penalty instead. And they are apparently giving Artemis, which is the special fire control system for
Apollo.
Apollo.
Yeah, so yeah, the Apollo fire control has a new saturation mode, which I am excited to see what that does.
Oh no.
I don't know what that is. If
All
it
the
is,
missiles
I
mean-
have a theory, and my theory is it's going to let you use it as an artillery piece.
So anyways, it gets this nifty saturation mode that we'll have to see what that
Yes.
means in the book.
Right.
I'm excited for it. MRMs are one of my favorite bad weapons. I don't take them enough because I think the +1 tends to not be worth it, and their range brackets are kind of wonky. But I think the changes to them, I am very excited to see what they do, because I think it might be an interesting weapon type.
Well, it goes up to an MRM 40, doesn't it? Is that the biggest?
Yeah, it goes up to 40.
Yeah.
Like Luke saying is one of my favorite bad weapons. I want to bring them more. Is a reminder of like the difference in the way Luke plays when he's playing just for fun and when he's playing to win.
Yep.
Listen, I play Draconis Combine, and I just painted an Akuma, and I want to use that Akuma so bad.
Man, I so many of us in terms of like the more veteran players are definitely sad and annoyed that your time is taken up with things that are not BattleTech, because we want to see you play more competitive stuff.
Missiles, we're coming up in the world. Oh, also, extended LRMs no longer have a bunch of awful rules attached to them and can now use Artemis. Yay, yippee, this is definitely going to make them more effective.
Yep.
There's a lot here. Overall, in terms of like the weapons section, I have some concerns in terms of what they're adding to core rules in a balance aspect, and I can talk about that a bit more later. But I think just in terms of like any individual thing, I feel like broadly it's good. A lot of this stuff, my issues just come as from a competitive organizer, not necessarily as a player.
So Nicholas, on the competitive aspects, I think, and I know Garner has had this complaint about certain competitive classic events that say BMM rules only, and switching that to core rule books only, I think
has the same exact problem, which is that the BattleMech manual, I talk about this later, but like the BattleMech manual was not designed
to be a
for balanced and competitive books. It's designed to include the most popular stuff, and I don't think this book is designed and intended for balanced play either. And like I have a whole long section, and I talk a bit about that in the next section. But just in terms of weapons and equipment, cool. I'm kind of excited to see what a light plasma rifle and heavy plasma rifle are.
Yeah.
Nothing good. We didn't need a head copper that applied heat.
What? What? No.
Were any of these armors considered advanced? I forget.
Yes. All special armors were advanced.
So basically that's just been introduced to
Yes.
Yeah, it's we've got a lot to say on that. Let's move on to battlefield support.
I have a quick thing for this, and this is just going off of something John said earlier, which is that was a change that needed to happen because they clearly want Ill Clan to be the kind of standard era now. it was a band-aid they needed to rip off.
In terms of like all the added equipment and
Yep.
special armor.
All the armor.
like ferrolamellar.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
like that stuff needed to be in if they were going to.
It could have been handled better and differently, and we can cover that later. Let's move on just to the next section here, battlefield support, which this is definitely, at least for me, a section that I will more fully judge as a whole, because I think there's definitely individual aspects in here that could be good, and there's individual aspects in here that I think are absolute horrible crap. So, you know, like, I have strong opinions on battlefield support, particularly in a competitive environment, and I don't like that they're removing full vehicle rules.
Yeah. However, if you do need to use these, I do like that they changed, that they go in the normal initiative now. They don't move first, and they broke up the attacks into multiple attack rolls instead of an all or nothing. Though those two
They're less
changes
swingy.
goes a long way to making these more tolerable. Yeah.
As a narrative RPG thing, when you want battle mechs to be the heroes and to have little things that are on the side of the field that kind of like don't occupy too much time and let, you know, your mercenary players be heroes in their mechs and whatnot, battlefield support vehicles and things, I think that's where they can serve a function. But in terms of immersive and balanced gameplay, going back to a previous topic, which is randomness does not feel good and does not actually contribute well to a competitive environment. And when you have units that can be very combat effective and they die randomly, you know, there's a random roll when you reach a threshold where they either completely vanish or refuse to be removed
Take 100
from the
points
field.
of damage. Yeah.
I would say the mech dichotomy, things are either made of balsa wood or titanium, and this just amplifies that up without understanding of cause and effect.
Yeah.
And I have battlefield support, RPG, cool. Competition, anything where you're playing against another person in a primarily competitive environment, they should never be used.
Well, yeah, and we'll wait to see, because I know they have said they plan on having a separate non-mech like full rules unit book that they will be releasing at some point.
Yeah. Everything else is going to come in another book. Yeah.
Which, yeah, I will pass judgment on that when I see it, because I think there's definitely some squirreliness with vehicles that they could tighten up if they wanted to, and I would like to see how they deal with that.
This might be a bit of a hot take, but I think the level of change in the rules here is more than just a new book. They're trying very hard to stress that this is not a new edition, but it's my opinion that simply by calling it BattleTech Core Rulebook and excluding full vehicle rules, this is a new edition.
Yeah.
Their metric for an edition change was whether or not this book changed existing record sheets, and according to them, it does not, except they fail to understand that this new book invalidates every single full rules record sheet that is not a mech. Those rules are now optional, and BSPs are now core. Now, this might not meet the need for, say, a full integer version, but these changes are at least on the scale of, say, D&D 3.0 to 3.5. By taking full vehicle rules out of the core rules and adding in battlefield support vehicles into core rules, they have fundamentally changed the mechanics of the game that now completely invalidate many of the ways people play. Sure, they may make a new vehicle book, but it will be outside of the quote core rulebook, unquote. It will be optional, and the problematic BSPs will be at the core of the game. I also have some significant concerns behind their methodology for changes. In the developer notes document, it specifically mentioned that part of the reason the proposed side hit location tables were dropped was due to statistics provided by players. This implies to me that they did not do their own statistics. The proposed side tables were just objectively bad if you looked at them mathematically. And like many of the rules they are changing here, it really seems that the criteria for these changes was based on what feels good, rather than how many of these changes will impact the totality of gameplay. You heard me previously talking about like some of these rules individually I like, but as a totality, I have an issue with the push they're making in different directions of the game. I mean, that said, nothing I have read is so bad that would stop me from enjoying the game. It does cause a lot of concern and problems for me as an organizer and format creator. The first being how this book is coming out as a complete rule book without complete rules. BSPs are not complete rules. They have also not made any adjustments to battle value, nor have they apparently made any considerations for what equipment is balanced for competitive play. Previous editions of BattleTech have kept their own problematic rules level designations, in part to keep interesting but potentially unbalanced equipment out of, quote, tournament, unquote, play. However, these rules level designations were combined with an in-universe tech level, which was honestly, I think, idiotic and a constant frustration for pretty much every single CDT agent. There was a constant pressure, particularly from up high, to add technology, add equipment as it becomes widely available and in production in universe to standard rules or out of experimental into advanced. And it doesn't seem like a lot of consideration was made to keep the game balanced. The BattleMech manual is made without balance or rules level in consideration, and was made and intended to give players easier to understand rules for the most popular used mech things. And I think Chris was just talking about, like, is it good that tech level / rules level is being changed? I think yes, but the problem was that they were combined, not that they existed. I think they could keep all of the equipment that they're adding. They could keep all of it, and all they have to do is make a designation in there and say, this is, this is standard, this is advanced, this is standard, this is advanced, in the same book, just to have some consideration for what is a balanced game versus just a deep and interesting narrative type of game. I like some of the changes, I dislike others, but most of all, particularly because this is one book coming out. This is not a combination of this book and a tech manual and BV changes and a vehicle book. This is one book coming out on its own with so many changes, and it doesn't have companions. It doesn't have an expanded sort of feel to it. It's not like, D&D 3.5 that came out with the player's handbook, the monster manual, the dungeon master's guide all at the same time. Imagine if, hey, we're making D&D 3.5, here's the dungeon master's guide. And you're like, wait, how do I implement all of this? Just wait, we're coming up with a monster manual eventually. This feels very rushed.
I can agree with that, and I think where my concern is speed on the follow-up books. I would put money down that CGL has in their plans to come up with the next set of books, like whether it be tech. They're not coming fast, and I think that their way that they're working with the Force manuals, Davian and Karita, and now Mercenaries, as was mentioned by John, where they're still dealing with, hey, we're still in Civil War, and we'll come out with the Ill Clan PDFs, coming out soon, TM, It's like, guys, I mean, I agree that there's a rush for this, but I think it's also a call for at least some patience. Like, they're not complete rules. Maybe it's, as players, it's going to be, hey, this year we're going to implement these aspects, and next year we'll implement the next phase, and then we'll get the rest of the books. But I guess, I mean, overall, I think this is going to be good changes to the rules. There will be pain. I don't think that it won't be hard, but the net result will be positive growth for BattleTech. I think it's going to reduce and explain some of the complexity in the rules. So like I was saying, skidding rules, that was a good thing. Get rid of that. It was causing 4 pages of nonsense that really did not help. I don't think this is going to result in a schism, say something like between D&D and Pathfinder. These changes are evolutionary and not revolutionary. I don't think it's going to be it's going to be pain, but not the end of the world.
I mean, 3.0 to 3.5 was an improvement.
Yes.
3.5 was 3.0 was okay. 3.5 was great. They made a lot of changes from 2nd edition to 3rd edition, and they had some issues that they needed to wring out, and 3.5 came out, and it was still my favorite edition.
Yes, 4.0 was terrible, and that caused the schism. I don't think it's that. That's I think where I'm landing is. That's the analogy. This is not it would be closer to the 3 to 3.5, where it's it's a significant change, but it is not a full dot or full version change. It's a dot version.
It's John.
No. Just that I liked 4th edition.
Oh,
sorry.
I thought I heard it. No.
I played the crap
opinions
out of 4th
right?
edition. I was deep into World of Warcraft. Like, it was right in my wheelhouse. But I also understand it was not D&D. It
4th
was
edition
its own game.
Right.
4th edition was a good miniatures game. It was a pen and paper MMO.
Oh, best tactical D&D game I've ever played. Yeah.
Tactical D&D, but it wasn't an immersive RPG, right? You go from
no. Out of combat, I didn't know what to do.
I hear people who played it like a miniatures war game really enjoyed it. But you had D&D 3.5, which definitely had more of a simulator vibe, where it had there's a rule to roll for everything, particularly if you get past the books. You have 4.0, which is like, hey, we made basically a miniatures war game, and it's kind of the root of D&D almost, with chainmail and sort of what they started to do with some of the minis, and people really didn't like that. Pathfinder 3.75 really took off, and then 5th edition came out, which was less immersive and more kind of cooperative storytelling, where the broad strokes are there and you're left to sort of fill in with your imagination rather than the nuance of the details. And now you are, I guess, 5.5 with D&D Beyond.
Yeah.
I haven't really gone into Beyond much myself, but I think in terms of 5th and Beyond are the most popular D&D has ever been. And while I can't say it's my favorite, the amount I've played, it's been enjoyable. And I think in terms of BattleTech, really the mech rules and changes they've made are, on an individual basis, kind of okay. I have some problems with methodology. And it ultimately, I feel like my instinct from what I've seen so far is that they should have waited. They should have put a little more thought and planning, because I have concerns that are already being raised.
I think to that point, I can agree. There's nothing that immediately demands that they release the core rulebook. Like, there's no fundamental problems that we haven't already solved, like either with house rules, or just those are optional rules and we're ignoring it. The the market or the community doesn't require a core rulebook change today. It will take it on, but it doesn't demand it. And I think if they had delayed it and come up with other rule books to go along with it, it would have been a better release. You figure 40th edition books were just printed last year. Or
they just came out. Yeah,
they just came out. Like, to push, I mean, like, that's where I agree that, you know, they could have paused on releasing the core book until they had all the, you know, the Dungeon Master guides and monster manuals and all the other associated books. At least the vehicles and you know, Aerospace and Interstellar Ops could probably have waited, but yes, a vehicle rule book would have been useful, or a mech construction book, you know, that kind of a thing. I think would have been a good idea. Oh, I gotta buy the 40th edition book, and oh, it's already outdated. Isn't that great? You know, that's disappointing. That's
yeah, because the 40th box had like different cover art and stuff and everything, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think the 40th edition box art was pretty bad, but yes.
I'm just suggesting that, you know, I mean, like, for me, who's more or less returning to the game, you know, I made investments in buying the latest books because they were the 40th edition. I figured, hey, these will be great for a long time, and to find out that nope, they're good for all of about a year. You know, that's you know, that's max.
I will say that's been the one
other games
bonus of Total Warfare has been out of print for a month now. So at least they haven't been selling people Total Warfare right up until the new one comes out. But although you still need it if you want vehicles.
Yeah,
so.
That's the other problem. If you want to play with full vehicle and infantry and battle armor rules, you still have to bring out Total Warfare.
Right.
And that causes more issues. I feel like not coming out with full rules for everything all at once, it feels rushed. Or maybe they think BSPs will do the job, but
I think for a lot of people they will.
Yeah.
I think for things like Hinterlands and, you know, that kind of we'll call it non-competitive, you know, role-playing kind of elements, I think it's great. I don't think it works for a competitive mindset.
And, you know, it's entirely possible. Maybe we're just the odd ones out who actually play competitive, and everyone else is just.
They're like, I know that you play BSPs. What are you, crazy?
But classic tournaments are growing.
Yes, they are. Very much so. And I'm glad to see it. It's making me want to play more classic, that's for sure. So
now, in terms of, you know, our implementation, we've been talking about this and thinking about this for a long time, and particularly when thinking about, you know, Zest is going to be trying to push and run a major tournament whose, you know, rules and format is largely, you know, Iliad with some changes, where I'd almost consider that something not quite created by us, but inspired by us. And then, like, if our rules are a major part of a big tournament, I'm happy. And I still want Iliad to focus on something that, in theory, maybe not in practice yet, but in theory is something that people could pick up and run and use anywhere as a very thorough format. I think if that is still the intention, we should switch to this book.
Yeah.
As problematic as that might be, and how to do that is a question.
So my opinion, and this is my general thing, is for this, I would recommend doing basically not switching out like the day of launch, and basically doing a moratorium until the end of the year and then reassessing then. because that'll be the easiest way to do it, of just being like, hey, this is a brand new book, we're looking into implementing it, but there's some big kind of seismic changes it did, and we need to rework our format around those. And I think that's a reasonable thing to do.
I might just switch to eliminating combined arms and allowing people to play with either Total Warfare or new core rules.
Yeah.
So it gives time to people to play, gives us some time and information to go through. I think we've discussed in the past switching list checking to Mech Bay instead of the master unit list. And if we switch to Mech Bay, we could provide people with a direct link to a filter that eliminates things that we want not included right off the start, right? As an easy access. Like, yeah, we create a manual list people can look at, but if we provide them with a click this link and the filter eliminates blue shield or whatever.
Yeah.
As a default thing, so that it's easier for people to not fall victim to grabbing something that's illegal, or so it's not difficult for us to list check,
Yeah.
and have something slip through the cracks that's illegal. Plus, if they're eliminating standard, advanced, experimental, it means that Mech Bay's variable tech level, which was part of the problem of using it, is no longer an issue.
Yeah. I mean, I think with regards to equipment, if you go to the core book and you are letting people play out of the core book, you need to let people use the options from the core book. Like, it's going to happen.
I don't know about all of the options. I mean, artillery weapon.
I think artillery is a reasonable ban, but I think you can't go and start ticky-tacking out of the gear.
I mean, null
you will have
signature
blue
system,
shields.
void signature system. There's hard gel 3. I mean, there's things that we can have conversations about, like radical heat sink system. It's mask heat sinks. I don't think that's there's a risk. There's a built-in risk reward of explosion or whatever. I'm not concerned about that. But certain things are worth having a conversation about in terms of should they be allowed or not. I know we've talked about previously, you can have one unit of special armor so that somebody doesn't show up with, hey, look, all hardened or whatever. So
yeah,
there's things that we are going to have to do and adjust and consider. Special munitions also depends on the master units and Mech Bay and how they adjust, but I think for a while being mechs only, still standard rules. You can play with Total Warfare or new BMM. We recommend or core rules. We recommend core rules, but if you don't have the book, you're not familiar enough, you and your opponent can still play Total Warfare as a vocalized extension of the rule of consent. That might be what we could do to play things out and get a feel for people playing the new rules. That's just a thought for now.
Yeah, we'll see.
That's going to be a whole other episode.
Yeah, dealing with the outcomes of this. And then I do just want to briefly mention the new boxes they're coming out with, the new starter box and the core box set. I'm excited for these from a mech standpoint. I think all of the stuff they've included are some real heaters for we are moving the timeline up. We are no longer kind of stuck in this weird interstitial period between Clan Invasion and 3025. This is now a game where we are focusing on Ill Clan. I am very curious to see what they're doing with the starter box, because so the starter box, for those who are not aware, this is a extension of their previous introductory and essentials boxes, which give you kind of a very truncated learn to play version of the rules. And previously these have featured basically intro tech mechs. The mechs they have put in this time are the Hammerhead, which is a clan tech. They're both clan tech mechs, but it's the Hammerhead, which uses hardened armor and a number of kind of special weapons and actuator enhancements, and the Contio, which is maybe one of the most powerful beneficiaries of some of the melee changes in the game, but it is a triple strength Myanmar stealth melee mech And that is a big step change in the amount of trust they're giving new players. I did go and watch Tuesday Newsday, which I think it was Randall had some explanations about how they're planning on handling it, and it's basically, we trust the average BattleTech player to know what it, like the person who is interested in this game to be able to handle these much better, and we think they're going to be a much more exciting introduction to the game. They also talk a lot about basically spoon feeding out some of the equipment over time. So this I'm interested in because if they were just doing another introductory box, I would be concerned, because these seem like mechs that are wholly unsuited for an introductory box. If they have actually taken the time to make an introductory box that can actually teach you all of the functions of the Contio, I think that's a big step change up in terms of the trust they're giving new players, and also in terms of their interest in providing for new player experience. So we will see. I am very interested to see what's going on there. I'm definitely going to get the box because I want a Contio. I'm definitely going to get the core box because I want basically everything in that box. I want my Rakshasa. So I will just kind of reiterate again what he said, but it was basically, their argument was, for a long time, they set introductory products in 3025 because it was considered easy tech and also kind of the introduction to the game. From their experience talking with people who ran their grinder games, and I think we've also seen this with our salvage games, if someone is receptive enough to play a game of BattleTech, they can handle a more advanced mech, and you don't need to hand them a really boring intro-tech slogfest in order to get them interested in the game. You want to hand them something kind of electrifying. And from that perspective, I understand why they went with the mechs they did.
The Contio is definitely electrifying.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, and something in particular to consider is it is very easy to pick up and play and have a good experience with complex rules when you're playing with one mech. And so giving somebody one mech to learn and learn all of its complex interactions is not a big ask. You're right, like that's in the salvage. Someone can join the salvage if they've played, one like learn to play thing. As long as somebody's around them to remind them, like, hey, that's a cool piece of equipment. It does this. People play and have a great time.
And it sounds like they've also, the way they're doing it is they stage out and they give you multiple record sheets for each of the introductory mechs. So there's one which is just basic movement and shooting. And then there's another one which introduces things like the claw attacks and melee and like actuator. And so like I said, I'll be very interested to see what that turns into in some. But I think the focus on creating a better new player experience, I think, is admirable. Because I don't know if you guys have read them, but I do not like the I do not like the introductory box or the essentials box. I don't think they're good introductions to the game.
I think as we're getting new players in, people who are not beholden to the grognard love of pre-clans and clan invasion, moving away from that sort of diehard fan base, like die on a hill territory, and pushing into ill clan is really going to make the game grow.
Oh, I also just think like Rifleman versus Centurion with an AC-20, and also you've removed heat rules, is a really bad fight. And that's what Essentials put you into. Or two mechs with jump jets kind of like pinging off each other because neither of them can hit each other in the starter box.
I bought it for the mechs and for the $20 coupon.
Yeah, and with Essentials being the long-awaited Solaris rules re-release, and it was a super watered-down version of it. It's like, why they chose Solaris as the setting, but gave you none of the Solaris stuff was kind of odd. But
a box with a mech that has a hatchet, and they didn't give the mech. They didn't give you the hatchet rules. Like, so if they're working on actually putting like effort into making the new player experience better, I am all for that. I think that is going to be super cool. I think the core box, if it is just basically big armored combat, I talked about this earlier. I think some of the weight class matchups in that are kind of hydrogen bomb versus coughing baby. The Hollander getting matched up against a solitaire is hilarious. Because on one hand, you have famously kind of sacrifices everything to mount half of its total tonnage in one big gun, versus a mech kind of double its speed with twice its firepower.
Hey, but at least there's no PSR for firing that thing anymore.
Oh no, it's not even a Holly. It's not a Holly 2. It's just the basic. It's just the base Hollander with the Gauss rifle. But yeah,
nice.
But yeah, that the Rakshasa versus the Mad Dog Mark IV is like, I like my Rakshasas. Those are not comparable mechs. I hope I'm guessing they're giving us a new version of it, and I wish it's good.
All right, gentlemen, as we are approaching the 2-hour, 30-minute mark, I'm going to make the executive decision that we're going to skip games played. And I'm opening up to closing remarks. Any sort of final thoughts, things you want to get off your chest and mention as we come to a close here?
I'm good. I think we talked a lot, and I think it's all going to come out in the end.
Yep. I'm looking forward to all of this. The boxes, the rules, the books. I overall, I think this is a good thing.
Yep.
It's going to be a little bumpy, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Yep. I am tentatively excited. I think this is, as far as rollouts go, I think this is one of the smoother ones I've seen from Catalyst, and I am excited to see what they do with some of this stuff. We haven't talked about it, but I'm also excited to get a whole bunch more Ghost Bears when that Snowblind box comes out.
I'm thinking now my position might be summed up into an analogy of the game, you know, the big video game as you approach release day, where you're like, this thing's gonna have bugs and it's gonna need some patches day of. What's the game that just released that has like so many problems? Crimson something?
I don't know. I was gonna say, is this the Cyberpunk release? Because this sounds like
Yeah,
a
there you
Cyberpunk
go.
release.
Cyberpunk is a good analogy. I'm looking at this thing and thinking like, I'm getting Cyberpunk vibes. I'm thinking like this, like if they don't patch it, I'm gonna have to like find some mods to patch it, and I think it's going to be at the core good. The core rulebook's going to be at core good. I'm going to enjoy it and have some fun experience, but I don't think I'm going to like it entirely out of the box, so to speak.
But also, like, Randall Bills is not coming into your house and stealing your copy of Total Warfare. Like, we will still have that. So,
yeah.
If it's catastrophic, BattleTech will still be played.
Exactly.
No, I'll still play BattleTech. It's just, you know, trying to run a competitive league is going to be, it's gonna change.
It's a lot of regulars. Well, I mean, one of the founding principles of the Legion and the League has always been kind of healthy community discussion and debate and making the most of community connections. And I think this will be a test of those, but based on our local players, I have no doubt we'll be able to come to a conclusion that will be good for everyone.
I appreciate your optimism in relation to my pessimism.
Listen, this wouldn't be a good podcast if we all just agreed with each other. I need to take a sunny disposition here. Not the least because I do have a sunny disposition, but also because it makes it a better podcast.
I've expressed this before, and I'm going to express this again. I really, this would not be the Legion, our local gameplay, the things we're creating would not be the same without you, Luke, without Garner, and without a team of people to very specifically point out when I have a bad idea.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I call it the George Lucas effect, where if you remember for the original trilogy, there was a team of people, very talented, intelligent people who were also directors
Yeah.
who, when George Lucas had an idea, they could look at him and go like, that's a bad idea, George. We're not doing that.
Yeah.
But for the sequel trilogy, George
too much
had a
money.
bigger head and people weren't around to tell him no. And that's how you get like the Japanese whale aliens and Jar Jar Binks.
Yes.
So you guys are preventing me from creating a Jar Jar Binks of BattleTech.
Yeah. we I mean, I was gonna say, isn't that basically what the unpersoned book was about? All right.
It's all good.
Well, thank you, John. Thank you, Chris. And as always, thank you, Luke.
Yeah.
Luke. Thank you for listening to the Odysseus Legion podcast. This podcast was created by the Odysseus Legion, a BattleTech club organizing play around Central and Western New York State. Rules for all of our formats, as well as a calendar of Odysseus Legion events, can be found on our website, odysseuslegion.com. All music and audio in this recording was licensed through Adobe Stock or open source. All views expressed herein are those of the person expressing them and do not necessarily represent the views of the Odysseus Legion, Catalyst Game Labs, or the Catalyst Demo team. Please make sure to like and subscribe to the Odysseus Legion podcast on your podcast platform of choice or on our YouTube channel. Have a great day.